Hello everyone! For my Issues and Trends presentation, I have decided to talk about stress management in elementary school children. In this presentation, I will be going over what stress is, how it affects children, what we can do to help as teachers, and why this is even a controversy. So let's get started. But before we can begin, we need to understand what stress actually is. I'm sure most of us have experienced stress one way or another, but let's look at the definition of stress. Stress is the body's reaction to any change that requires adjustment or response. The body reacts to these changes with physical, mental, and emotional responses. You can experience stress from your environment, your body, and your thoughts. Some of the related stress disorders include depression, anxiety disorder, panic disorder, sleep disorder, social anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse, and addiction. It's important to understand as a future teacher that your students might experience one, if not many, of the stress disorders listed. So what are the different types of stress? We have developmental stress, which occurs when children are expected to respond to activities that overtax two or more developmental domains. As a result, these are usually negative experiences and ends up being a stressor for the child. Acute and chronic stress. When you're talking about acute stress, it's a result of a single unexpected experience that varies on how long it takes to resolve. However, chronic stress refers to an ongoing experiences that accumulate over time. Finally, there's complex trauma, which is multiple stress-related life events experienced by a child. The intensity of stress plays a role in how children respond according to Karen Pearson. Positive or balanced stress is a motivator for children to improve on a task. Tolerable or moderate stress gives children the feeling of anxiety and concern. Toxic or chronic stress is long-lasting and intense. Trauma is the last level of stress and the most damaging. It is extremely threatening and overwhelming for a child. So let's break it down. Children's brains are still developing. Therefore, the detrimental impacts of stress on your child can take its toll on the child's brains and body. Stress is only beneficial in short-term situations, but its long-term effects can include heart disease, obesity, and diabetes, not to mention mental issues like depression, fear, neediness, and the inability to learn new behaviors. This prolonged activation of the stress response is called toxic stress, as we discussed on the previous slide. So why is this an issue? Why is it even considered a controversy, you may ask? As adults, we often experience stress, but do you think children do? Science points to yes. According to the American Psychological Association, about 20% of children report worrying a great deal. However, parents underestimate their child's emotions. Only 3% of parents rate their child's stress as extreme. While 33% of kids experience headaches in the month prior to this study, only 3% of parents thought these were stress-related. So I do feel that this is a controversy. I believe that a lot of us underestimate the fact that children can go through stress. Maybe because it's not the same as our stress does not mean that it's not important to tackle, especially at a young age. So what causes stress? In school, taking important tests, presenting reports, standing out in the crowd, being in danger, and relationship with peers and siblings can all cause stress to a child. When taking important tests, children can have extreme test anxiety and sometimes completely shut down during tests, which can directly affect the student's grades. When presenting reports, giving oral presentations can play into the student being worried about embarrassing him or herself. Standing out in the crowd can give the student the feeling of being the center of attention, which can often be very uncomfortable and stressful for a child. And being in danger refers to school lockdowns, fire drills, etc. Kids are reminded about potential dangers on a regular basis. So what are some of the symptoms of stress in children? Some of the symptoms include an upset stomach, change in appetite, worrying, anxiety, crying, headaches, bedwetting, fidgeting, and difficulty sleeping. But how can you tell if a child is stressed? For children, it can manifest in different ways, such as a moody attitude, withdrawing from activities they once enjoyed, expressing worry constantly, complaining about school more than usual, clinging to parents or teachers, sleeping too much or too little, or eating too much or too little. So how do children respond to stress? There are 3 different stages that a child can go through. Stage 1 is the alarm stage, where a child becomes aware of the threat and absorbs both emotional and physical information from potential stressors. Stage number 2, which is the appraisal, where a child evaluates stressors and compares it to past experiences, is affected by the child's self-efficacy and self-awareness. And stage number 3, which is coping. Child finds a way to deal with the stressor. So how does it affect children directly? As we have talked about before, stress can affect the mental and physical well-being of children. But to focus on more of a scientific side, constant long-term exposure to stress hormones can have a negative impact on the body. Brain neurons stop working and new ones have trouble developing, which can cause long-term impacts on how the brain develops in children. So how does it affect schools and how can we help as teachers? I believe this is a situation where the school has to help the child because there are a lot of outside stressors that can be affecting a child's performance in school. Stress can cause children to do poorly on assignments, skip homework, or build normal relationships with their peers. I do believe that as teachers we have to accommodate ourselves to the need of the child, and there are several ways to do so. Number 1, creating a serene corner where a child can go and just take a minute to him or herself. Limiting homework overload. By talking to your fellow teachers, you guys can agree to not assign all the assignments or tests on the same day and therefore not overwhelming the child. By keeping kids moving, you can assign different stations where a child can constantly keep switching his mindset. Playing music can help students relax and refocus. And just by simply listening to them. Talking about issues that are bothering the student without taking time from your lesson can be very beneficial for them. It's important to remember that stress is a multi-sensory experience for children. Understanding how they respond to stress will ultimately help you understand and apply accurate support to the child. But how can parents help? Often when students complain about having trouble paying attention, many parents assume the child is just acting out. But if a child's school performance is decreasing, and if a child is failing to learn, it might be caused by negative impacts of stress. So what are some of the ways that a parent can help? Number 1 is talking with your child. 30% of kids worry about families' financial situations, but only 18% of parents think this is a child stressor. Talking to them shows them it's okay to approach you about their concerns, and talking to them about the situation itself might help them understand that there is no need to stress. Playing with your child. According to Forbes, an increasing number of schools are reducing recess time in order to allow for more instruction in the classroom. And that combined with screen time leaves kids with minimal exposure to physical play. Exercise naturally relieves stress. Therefore, encouraging children to have outdoor playing time will give them a break from their stressors. Finally, encouraging sleep. 57% of kids don't have a regular bedtime. And 60% of kids don't get enough sleep, which can lead to irritability and stress overall. So what is my personal opinion on this matter? I believe that acknowledging children's stress is extremely important. Not underestimating their symptoms and acting quickly to reduce them might make a big difference in their development as learners and as people. As a future teacher, I believe that applying what we have learned to fit the needs of our learners is the key to assure their success and prevent them from suffering long-term effects of stress. I do think that children experience stress, and I do think that it's very important for us to acknowledge it and to tackle it as soon as possible. I have learned so much in this presentation about how children are actually affected by them. So I hope that you did too. And I hope that you take some from this presentation to apply in your classroom in order to reduce stress in your future students. Thank you.